Okay, so it's not your daddy's diesel mechanic, not your daddy's car mechanic. Times have changed exponentially, and the technology is advancing every year in leaps and bounds. How do you get to stay relevant in this trade? And how do the customer, and I'm speaking to the customer just briefly, how do you expect for a guy to invest so much into himself and so much into schooling that most of the stuff that he's learning within these trades, mechanic trade, has to do with way advanced technology, some of which is used even in, spaceships. So I think that, sometimes I talk about like how things are overcomplicated in the realm of electrical, but the interplay of how you have to understand how everything connects, it's kind of amazing really what's expected of us versus mechanics back in the day. Back in the day, you had to adjust things. Everything was a mechanical aptitude. When I went into the military, I'll say this again, the ASVAB, Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, determines what things you can excel at. I went in as an open contract. I was offered an intelligence job because I passed the Defense Linguist Aptitude Battery. But I went in open contract and I came from group homes, so I was a little bit worried about them kicking my ass out. So I just said nothing, and I ended up a diesel mechanic. But I had very high electrical scores. So that means that I have an aptitude here. That doesn't mean that if you have mechanical aptitude and non-electrical that you can't learn this, but it might be something that's going to stretch your brain's parameters to view something in a different way. So when we look at electrical problems, we don't look at them as mechanical problems. They're not observable. They're based on laws. I have this means this equals this, like equations. Versus mechanical, you might take a look at and come up with the failure analysis of that is, well, the cam cap lifted here, on a Series 60, and all of a sudden you had a bull gear that gave out, or all kinds of issues that can be related to progressive failure. The same thing can happen in electrical, but the way you go about diagnosing it is not by observation. So I want people who are getting into this trade to really start to advance their understanding of technology, because I don't want to see anyone get left behind, right? And I want to see all you guys make the best money you can. And in fact, you will not make that money if you can't contend with the technology in the future. One last thing to anybody who's watching this, who might be like a truck driver, a customer, or something like that. Give a little bit more leeway to these young guys, and especially the guys who are buying the tools and paying these costs to be able to be proficient in their job, because it's very difficult to know it all. And most of the time, even I'm approaching everything as if I'd never seen it. And the reason why is because with a fresh outlook on things, you're never predisposed to believe that you know more about the situation than you do. So the systematic approach wins because I'm not tied to it with my ego proving anything about, how fast I am or any of this to anyone else. I'm just going to make sure that I find the answer and then I fix the problem, and then I can verify that. So this is my 2 cents for you guys, but stay in there, man, because it's the technological advances. I think at some point they're going to become some stasis there where the technology will be proficient enough to get the jobs we need done. But I think in the advancement of this next huge historical jump in technology, I mean, if we were to look at timelines of man and then the last 150 years, we've gone from covered wagon to self-driving cars. So what comes in the future? Well, really proficient self-driving cars and technologies that don't require carbon emissions. That's where the world's going. I don't agree one way or the other. I'm just saying this is where it's going. So what always happens is there's always holdouts from prior generations who say, I refuse to advance with the technology. I refuse to advance with this. And what happens to them? They usually just sit there bitter, angry, yelling, and everyone passes them by. So I know this stuff isn't the easiest stuff to get, but I really believe that you need to sink yourself into the electrical realm here and really start to advance your understanding of that, or it's very likely that you could be one of those technicians who does get left behind in the technology.